Happy Halloween. It's October the 31st. It's also Flex Friday. My name's CJ Curry. We're back talking more NBA player props here on PrizePicks. If you're new to the channel, you haven't subscribed yet, this is your opportunity to hit the subscribe button. While you're down there clicking buttons, you may want to also ring that bell. Turn on all notifications for the channel so you don't miss out on any content when it drops. And do me another big favor. Click the like button. What might be a small gesture to you means a whole lot to me. And in fact, we're on our way to a pretty significant milestone here on the channel, almost 30,000 subscribers. And when we hit 30,000 subscribers, for those of you who have been rocking with me for a while, you know I'm gonna give a big sum of money away to somebody out there. Last time we hit 20,000 subs, I think I did a $1,000 giveaway. We can do something similar here when we hit 30,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed yet, this is just even more incentive, more reason for you to get subscribed. And I appreciate everybody for doing so. Let's see if we can get there and then we can talk money. All right, speaking of money, I have to give a special shout out to one of our loyal, longtime Discord Dub Club members because he went absolutely bonkers recently. And I'm talking about my guy, Space Jam, the DJ. He's one of our contributors in the community, and he absolutely cooked the other night. And I told him I'd give him a special shout out in the next video, and this is me promising, living up to my promises, rather. Yeah, back on the 29th, so a couple nights ago, this guy did just insane work here. Sends out a first half slip to cash for 3x. Then he comes back with a huge 25x. Going 6 for 6 on this particular slip, turning $40 into $1,000, blessing the Dub Club members, blessing the community with an awesome slip right there. You can see a lot of people tailed his picks because he's a contributor to the community for a reason. I know that he knows what he's doing. Then he hit another 3x right here, going from $50 to $150. So just absolutely killing it. This was a second half only slip. And of course, you know, everybody's in on the action, tailing him. Here's a 2x that he hit. So a nice little double up, really, really close to another $1,000 slip. Keep scrolling here. He's back again with another 3x slip. Just an insane run that he went on, another 3x from him there. And then, you know, I had a little 1.5xer that almost went big, but close, but no cigar. But yeah, I mean, the community was just absolutely cashing out. So I just wanted to give him a special shout out. And like I said, be a man of my word, live up to my promises, and say thank you for all that you do. Now, if you want to be a part of the community, there's really nothing stopping you here. You head on over to this Dub Club page, you sign up, subscribe to the Dub Club, you get your first month at just $10, and then from there it's like $20 a month, which comes down to about 67 cents per day, about $5 per week, and you start cashing in with me, Space Jam, and the rest of the Eyes on the Prize community members. All right, if that sounds like something you want to do, well then, you know, sign up for the Dub Club. You'll get all my picks, plays, parlays, helpful stats and information, a kick butt community full of members who are just in there just trying to help each other out. So definitely shout out to the Dub Club members. All right, with all that chitter chatter out of the way, let's get down to business here because we got some PrizePicks options and hopefully they are more treats and less tricks. So let's get down to the PrizePicks board and start things off here with my first pick, which is going to be Ivica Zubac of the Los Angeles Clippers. I'm looking at the over here on his 25.5 points plus rebounds. He's done a really good job this season of clearing this line. He's going up against a Pelicans team that is not very good at defending the center spot. They weren't good last year. They're not much better this year. And so let's take a closer look at this one under the lens of Outlier. Shout out to Outlier, by the way. If you're not using Outlier and you want to take Outlier for a test run, I think they still have a 7-day free trial. There's a link down in the description of today's video, and you can check out Outlier for yourself and take it for a test drive. But just looking at the games here from this season for Ivica Zubac, you see that he has gone over his points plus rebound line of 25.5 in 3 out of 4 games. So that's a 75% hit rate. Pretty consistent here. He did have one bad game against Phoenix. Didn't do so well there. Only 8 points and 5 rebounds. But as you can see, that was one of the games where he played more limited minutes, just 24.7 minutes. So not his best effort, not his best affair in that one. But Going up against this Pelicans team, the Pelicans ranked 23rd in points allowed, so they're giving up a ton of points. They rank 30th in rebounds allowed, something that Zubac excels in, grabbing boards. And when we take a look at specifically the center spot, they rank 29th in points allowed and 28th in rebounds allowed. So the matchup on paper seems to be a really good one. And it's a matchup that Zubac, for all intents and purposes, has taken advantage of in the past. If we look at the head-to-heads against New Orleans the last 3 times that he's played against the Pelicans, well, he's racked up 36, 30, and 27 points plus rebounds. Now, he was playing more elevated minutes in those games, 36, 38, and 33. We haven't seen him get quite that many minutes this season. 27-24. He did top out at 34.6 against Portland and then 24.1. So I think he's going to just be more of a matchup dependent, situational dependent big man. So when there's another opposing big on the other team that he can kind of match up with well, he'll probably play more minutes. And I think Yves Missy is a matchup that he can kind of stay in the game and get more than 25 minutes, maybe closer to that 30-minute marker in this matchup. But loving what I'm seeing here for Ivica Zubac. Looks like a good matchup on paper, one that he's taken advantage of in the past, and he's done pretty well on this prop. 75% hit rate this season, averaging 23.5 PR, but that average is kind of being brought down by that one bad game against Phoenix. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at some projections here. We're going to head on over to RotoWire, again, one of my favorite sites to look at. And taking a peek here at Ivica Zubac, you're going to see a number of different things. They're going to give you a projection for Zubac. They're going to look at the hit rates, and they're going to look at how he's performing on the sports books. In other words, are sports bettors betting the over, or are they betting the under on this given prop? So you kind of get all that aggregated, and then RotoWire recommends, do you lean over or more, or do you lean under or less? And in this case, they're saying take the over or more on Zubac. He's projected for about 26.12, slightly more than the 25.5. I do wish that was a little bit of a meteor hardy projection, but we'll take it. 26.12, not terrible. Taking a look at another projection, we can slide on over to LineStar. LineStar does another fantastic job with their product. Not quite as refined as RotoWire, but still pretty good nonetheless. Now, they've got Zubac at about 23.9 points plus rebounds, so they're a little bit lighter, a little bit underweight. But as we mentioned before, the matchup, and they even agree here, is a good one for Zubac. The Pelicans ranked 29th in points plus rebounds allowed per game to centers, giving up about 36 PR per game this season. So that's looking pretty good there. Do wish that projection was a little bit higher, but we can live with it. And then last but not least, let's also check out Betting Pros and see if they have a projection for Zubac there. And they do. They have him going over 25.5 PR with a projection of about 26 PR for Zubac. Now, one other thing that I like to check out is the Prop Professor Optimizer. Let me actually drag that in here, and we can take a look at Zubac on the Optimizer and see kind of what's going on with him across the sportsbook landscape. And when we pull him up here, you're seeing most sports books, they have them at about 25.5 PR. There is an app called Fliff. They've got them up at 26.5 PR. But overall, when you kind of blend all those different sports books and the odds together and you strip out the juice, you strip out the vig, you're left with a true or fair odds of about 52% for Zubac to clear 25.5 points plus rebounds. So that looks like one of the props that I'd like to kind of take the over on. Let's see if they have this next prop still up on the board and if it's still available here. Lonzo Ball, yep. Over 4.5 assists, taking on the Toronto Raptors. Ball playing minutes off the bench. Donovan Mitchell is questionable. Not sure if he's going to play or not. He is dealing with a hamstring issue, but if he doesn't play, I would say that this benefits Ball even more. But as of right now, I'm happy as a clam with the 4.5 assist number here for Lonzo Ball. I'm going to take the over on this one. Again, taking a look at the matchup here. For the 2025 season, Lonzo Ball has not missed this prop in any game yet. He's recorded 6, 8, 5, and 5 assists in each of the 4 games that he's appeared in. That was against the New York Knicks, Brooklyn Nets, Milwaukee Bucks, and the Boston Celtics most recently. Getting somewhere right around 10 potential assists per game. As long as the Cleveland Cavaliers are knocking down shots on those potential assists, well, then they will turn into actual assists like they have here for Lonzo Ball. most recently. Now, in terms of the matchup, the Toronto Raptors are one of the most giving when it comes to assists to the opposing team. They're giving up about 28.4 assists per game. That's a 26th overall ranking in assists allowed per game to opposing teams. And then when you look at the point guard position, which is where Lonzo typically plays, it's a little bit more stingy, 7.6 assists per game to opposing point guards, which is a neutral matchup for all intents and purposes. And then taking a look at the shooting guard spot, just in case you kind of think Lonzo Ball might be a hybrid player, hybrid guard. 5.4 assists per game. They rank 14th there, so kind of a neutral matchup. So I do like what I'm seeing here, especially when you look at the historical numbers for Lonzo Ball versus the Toronto Raptors. Now, obviously, this was when he was with a totally different team, so kind of take this with a grain of salt, but it is interesting to kind of go back and look at how he's performed against this team in their head-to-heads in the past. And he had 7 assists back in December of 2024. January 2025 here, he had 5 assists. And then most recently, as a member of the Chicago Bulls, only 2 assists in that particular game, despite playing 34.4 minutes. So not his best performance when it comes to the assists in that particular matchup. But overall, looking really good here for Lonzo Ball. Now, taking a look at the different projections for Lonzo Ball. Of course, we're going to rinse and repeat. We'll go back over here and check out RotoWire first. Lonzo Ball, a lot of love for him on the RotoWire tools for PrizePicks. And if you want to get your hands on this RotoWire tool, there's a link down in the description of today's video that'll save you 15% off of any RotoWire subscription. And not only does this subscription work for PrizePicks, but it also works for sites like Underdog, DraftKings Pick 6, Sleeper, and then a whole bunch of different sports books like FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Hard Rock Bet, and Caesars. And this isn't just an NBA tool. This works for NFL, MLB, NHL, esports, and some of the more, we'll call them less popular sports like soccer, college sports, etc. So awesome tool. Check out RotoWire. They've got a really great mobile app as well. But anyway, Lonzo Ball here at 4.5 assists. You can see he's projected for the over according to the RotoWire projection tool. 5.12 is his assist number. That's about a differential of 0.62 assists. So not a huge projection for the over, but still a projection for the over nonetheless. So that's your first projection. Check it out, LineStar. LineStar's got a nice projection for Lonzo Ball as well. 5.9 assists, so they're a lot higher than RotoWire, and I love that projection, and hopefully Lonzo Ball finds that 5 assist number or more in this matchup, so gotta love what you're seeing there. I don't have a third projection. Betting Pros did not have any projections up for Lonzo Ball, and some of these other projection models that I use are not updated yet due to the time of the filming of this video, so those are the 2 projections we can kind of hang our hat on for right now. But I will show you this that was really interesting to me. When we punch in Lonzo Ball's name and we kind of take a look at where he's at on some of these sports books, the Prop Professor Optimizer gives Lonzo Ball more than a 55% chance of going over 4.5 assists. He's a minus 150 betting favorite over on Fliff to clear 4.5 assists. So a lot of love, a lot of juice coming in on the over on Fliff. Most sports books have him around 4.5. So yeah, like I said, this one's really kind of juiced up. I would expect this one to probably get bumped up to 5 assists. And they might even just take it down altogether if Donovan Mitchell gets ruled out. But that one's looking pretty good. Lonzo Ball for more than 4.5 dimes. The next pick that I have on my radar is a guy that we talked about in the last video. And I think I'm going to go back here to Kristaps Porzingis. No Trae Young for the Atlanta Hawks. And Kristaps Porzingis has been going over 25.5 points, rebounds, and assists with Trae Young. And so I hope that without Trae Young, he's still going to be able to rack up the points, the rebounds, and the assists. He's done so in every game that he's appeared in, cleared 25.5 PRA. And in that last game, it was kind of a weird one. We saw Porzingis probably set a pretty high mark in terms of assists. He usually doesn't get that many assists, but he did end up clearing his points and assists pretty easily in the last game. The points, rebounds, and assists is one that he cleared at this number, 25.5 as well. So let's take a look here. He's in a pretty good matchup against the Indiana Pacers. The first 3 games that Porzingis has played this season, as I mentioned, 29, 31, and 27 when it comes to his PRA. Now, that last game against Brooklyn, he really didn't have the greatest scoring performance. He really carried his PRA prop thanks to his 6 rebounds and, like I said before, his 7 assists. If you look back at the previous games, only 2 assists against this Chicago Bulls team and only 2 assists against the Toronto Raptors in his first game of the season. So if he can elevate his scoring from 14 and get back on track to 20 or 27 points and still sprinkle in those rebounds and sprinkle in a few assists, well, he's going to have a real opportunity to fly, through this 25.5 number. But taking a look at the matchup here against the Indiana Pacers, obviously Indiana dealing with a ton of different injuries. Halliburton out for the season. TJ McConnell's been hurt. They're just, decimated. Miles Turner's obviously no longer on the team. So I think Kristaps Porzingis could take advantage of this matchup. I think he would probably be matched up against Isaiah Jackson, who's slated to start at center for the Indiana Pacers. Not too concerned about that. Porzingis has shown an ability to score on just about anybody, any team, anytime, any place. So overall, Indiana ranks 22nd in points allowed, 29th in rebounds allowed, just second in assists allowed, surprisingly. But let's take a look at how they rank at the center spot, 11th in points allowed. So kind of a neutral matchup when it comes to points allowed to opposing bigs. And again, that could be because maybe they weren't facing a lot of offensively minded, gifted centers like Kristaps Porzingis. We'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But 26th in rebounds allowed to centers. So I would surely expect and hope that Kristaps Porzingis can kind of make the most of this matchup here in the rebound department against the Pacers. And then they rank second in assists allowed to opposing bigs, which is not really what we're looking for from Porzingis. He's going to get the bulk of his PRA from the points and the rebounds. Anything he gets from the assist department is just kind of the cherry on top, the sweetener for this particular prop. But moving on from this particular one, because I don't have any head-to-head information, let's look at some projections for Porzingis. We can kind of start things off by going over to RotoWire. RotoWire has Porzingis leaning more for the PRA. It's really the only prop that is favored to go over. All the other ones kind of fall under this lean less category. And again, that's because they look at the hit rates. They look at their own proprietary projections for a player prop, and they kind of compare to some of the sports books and other DFS pick'em maps like PrizePicks. So let's take a peek at the projection. 26.74 points, rebounds, and assists for Porzingis. That's 1.24 differential based on his line of 25.5 that he's currently sitting at here on PrizePicks. So first projection has him going over. Not a bad one, if I do say so myself. Let's see if we can get you another projection over on LineStar. LineStar's got him going over 25.5 PRA. The number there is 28.8. So they have him going well over 25.5 PRA by 3.3 points, rebounds, and assists. So that looks really good on paper as well. Love what I'm seeing there. And I think Betting Pros, I'm not sure if they had a projection for Porzingis or not, but let's check it out. No projection for Porzingis there. So we've only got the 2 projections to kind of go off of, but let's check the Prop Professor Optimizer as well. They do have this as a positive expected value play, plus EV play, 54% chance that he goes over 25.5 points, rebounds, and assists. DraftKings has him at 26.5. You're already seeing a little bit of money trickle in on the over at 26.5. Most of the other sites and books have him at 25.5. So be expecting this one to probably get the bump treatment. I think it'll go up to 26, maybe even 26.5 before tip-off. So Kristaps Porzingis over 25.5 PRA. Now the last prop is a fantasy score prop, a category that probably doesn't get enough attention or love, but I'm liking some Scottie Barnes of the Toronto Raptors to go over his fantasy score, which is set at 34.5, going up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I want to also give honorable mention, a shout out here to RJ Barrett. I think he's another guy that you can consider for fantasy score purposes, over 28.5 fantasy score. But would I play these two in the same slip? Probably not. I'd probably split these two guys up. If we expect Scottie Barnes to have a monster game, that might come at the detriment of RJ Barrett maybe not having his greatest game, and vice versa. If we think RJ Barrett's going to have a great game, maybe Scottie Barnes doesn't have such a great game. But for this video, I think I'm going to stick with Scottie Barnes here, and I'll explain why. So the fantasy score props are basically a combination of points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, and then you get docked a point for each turnover that a player has. So that's how they kind of tabulate their fantasy scores over on PrizePicks. So take a look at this matchup first and foremost, because this one kind of really caught my eye. If we go over to the power forward position and we take a look at which teams are giving up the most fantasy points per game to the power forward position, it's Cleveland. It's the Cavaliers. 5 games played, they're giving up over 62 fantasy points per game to opposing players. And the power forward position is the one where they're giving up the most fantasy score. And that's kind of where Scottie Barnes slots in for this team. You got Brandon Ingram at the other forward position, so to speak. RJ Barrett, he can kind of be considered a shooting guard, small forward, a wing. So kind of positionless, but I would say that Scottie Barnes probably is the power forward of those 3 guys. So that's why I'm kind of looking at this and licking my chops, because it looks like a really good matchup on paper here against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And you wouldn't think that the Cavaliers would be a team that is, giving up so many fantasy points, but apparently they are. So they're not doing a great job defending. Now, take a look at his game logs so far from this season. He's got 5 games in the bank, and 3 of the games he has just went crazy. So it's been feast or famine here for Scottie Barnes. He's had fantasy score outputs of 50.7, 53.2, and 49 against Atlanta, Dallas, and Houston. Some pretty good teams. Now, the games where he's went under, only 33.5 against the Milwaukee Bucks. Probably a tough matchup against Giannis and company. And then 15.6, and we know Victor Wembanyama is an absolute freak. And so I'm sure Scottie Barnes had his hands full going up against Wemby. And in this one, they got blown out. 121 for San Antonio, 103 for Toronto. So that kind of affected his minutes, impacted his minutes as well. He didn't even touch 30 minutes in that game, just 29.6. So we could call this sort of a throwaway game. Just a bad game for the Raptors, a bad game for Scottie Barnes as a result. Now, head-to-head, done a great job here against the Cleveland Cavaliers of clearing his fantasy score over the last 3 head-to-head matchups. 47.7 most recently, back in February of 2025. 54 fantasy points January 9th against Cleveland. 47.9 against Cleveland. And that was November the 24th of 2024. And then this game here was a bad game. Toronto, again, got blown out 136 to 106. Lost by 30 points to Cleveland. But this ain't the same Cleveland team. They're without Darius Garland, Max Strus. Donovan Mitchell's banged up, dealing with a hamstring. And they haven't been playing their best ball, and they're beat up on top of that. So I don't expect a blowout here. Maybe Cleveland wins. Maybe they win handedly, but I don't think they're going to win by 30. But we'll see what happens. But anyway, Scottie only played about 26 minutes in that game due to the blowout. But in the games where he's played 30-plus minutes against the Cavaliers, I mean, he's just feasted. Really fantastic numbers. Even if you include this really bad game here, he's averaging about 42.8 fantasy points per game against Cleveland in those last 4 head-to-heads. So love what I'm seeing here for Barnes. Let's go get some projections and apply those to this number here for Scottie. Scottie's projection over on PrizePicks at 34.5 fantasy score. He's at 39.42, so that's almost 5 fantasy points higher, 4.92 to be exact. So great projection there for Scottie Barnes. Another projection that we can go check out is over here on LineStar. LineStar's got another very impressive projection. It's at 42.46 fantasy score for Scottie Barnes. And if you're going to use any kind of projection models like I am to kind of compare projections to PrizePicks lines, make sure that you're using FanDuel projections. That's the same type of scoring system that PrizePicks uses when it comes to NBA fantasy scores. So another really awesome projection here for Scottie Barnes in what looks like a great matchup for him on paper. So I'm definitely leaning toward the over on Barnes. And one other thing that kind of caught my eye about Scottie Barnes is the fact that the public is betting the over on his 27.5 points, rebounds, and assists, getting a lot of love on the PRA. And normally when a player is doing really well in terms of the over, people are betting the over on his points, rebounds, and assists. It can be kind of used as a watermark for maybe how his fantasy score might perform, since the fantasy score is primarily made up of points, rebounds, and assists. So those are your picks for today's video. Guys, I hope this video finds you well. Make sure that you're being safe out there. If you plan on going out, doing any kind of trick-or-treating, either yourself, depending on how old you are, you might still trick-or-treat, or if you're out with kids or family members or friends, just practice safety today. I want everybody to make it back so that you can join me for another video and more videos in the future. Good luck on all your picks, plays, and parlays. We'll catch you in the next one real soon. Peace.